Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce webinar series. My name is Ali Williams. I'm the president and CEO of the Chamber. And with me today is Naomi Hedayarachi, who will be our communications, events, and marketing person at the Chamber. Welcome, Naomi. We will once again hear from our friends at Advantage Industries, Shelah and Russell Smith. And today we will be hearing about insights and best practices related to cybersecurity in the Maryland District of Columbia region and marketplace. So with that, I will ask that you put any questions or comments or thoughts or ideas in the chat box. We will all be monitoring those and get to your questions. Please feel free to ask away. They are very bright and will get you the answers that you need. And if not, we will research those and get those back out to this group. So we welcome you guys. Thank you, everybody, very, very much for being here. And Mike and Russell, take it away.
Ali, thank you so much for having us again this month. Russell and I look forward to this every month, the ideas and the opportunity to collaborate with you and the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce. So thank you very much. Everybody, again, my name is Mike Shelah. I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development with Advantage Industries. And my partner, my engineer extraordinaire, Mr. Russell Smith, we are going to walk you through some next level cybersecurity. If you joined us a couple of months back, Russell did a great presentation on low cost, no cost cybersecurity that every business should be doing. Not a lot of money, get yourself some good base level standards. And today we wanted to go much deeper into what does that next level look like? What are the things that every company really should be doing? Since that last meeting, we have seen a meatpacking plant attacked. We have seen a gas line company attacked. Even in our own industry, one of our primary software vendors was attacked and has caused tremendous havoc across the United States. And the real frustration with that media coverage is great, except those were all targeted attacks. Those were hackers going after specific companies for specific reasons. And it can give the typical business owner that false sense of security of, you know, we're not, I've got 10 employees, nobody's going after me. Or I've got 20 employees, no one's going after me. And the answer is, you're right. Nobody's intentionally going after you. They're just finding you because it's way too easy. So Russell is going to walk us through a fantastic presentation today to show some proactive services that you can implement into your strategy to make your company in the elite status when it comes to cybersecurity and protection. Russell, always good to see your smiling face.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Ali, and again, welcome, Naomi. It's so good to have you with the Chamber. Thank you for organizing. All right, let me share my screen here. Run through a little show. So yes, Mike exactly hit it on the head. We covered some basic stuff. We're going to reinforce the basic things that every organization should be able to do fairly easily, first off. But then we want to move beyond that because, as we're going to see today, these basic security things are not foolproof. No cybersecurity system is foolproof. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is that you assume that you should assume that you will be hacked. You should assume that your company or organization will have a data breach and plan and act accordingly, because no system is 100% effective. And you're in a much better position if you've gone into your planning and have your disaster preparedness, your business continuity planned out, assuming for the worst, because then you know exactly what to do and you're not freaking out when it happens.
Russell, I want to expand on that as you move to the next slide. Russell and I talk to 5 to 10 companies a week about what they're doing strategically with their IT. And we will frequently get the feedback, well, that's a lot of money. And that's more than our budget can allow. And we have to push back on that and say, look, you don't have to do business with us, but you do have to do something, because if you think about it, even as recently as 15 years ago, you didn't pay for internet in your business. Now, would you imagine not paying for internet today? No, because it's critical to your business. That's where this is going. And it's an unfortunate byproduct of a business truth that hackers, did you know hackers actually have software they can buy on the dark web that comes with customer support so that they can hack you?
Yeah, in fact, they're not even doing it themselves anymore. They're using automated programs to look for compromised email accounts, unsecured networks, unpatched firewalls, and then they just get a little summary email at the end of the day saying, hey, here's what we found with open doors. And then they actually go to work. So hackers use the same kind of tools to make their lives easier that the rest of us do. That means that they can hit a lot more people. They can reach a lot more companies.
Yeah, the point there is we hope that you will look at this and start building a plan. Because the sooner you start, the better, but build a plan out. Maybe it's, okay, we're going to start in January. We're going to financially budget out. We need to spend X amount of dollars monthly to protect our business, to protect our most valuable asset, which is our data.
So what we talked about last time, just to give a recap, is 5 things that you can do pretty easily in most cases, and your organization can do and should be doing. And these are fairly low cost, easy to implement. Time is the biggest cost here on most of these. So first off, it's 2021. You need to have a commercial grade firewall. We still run into folks that say, oh, I just have the modem from Verizon or Comcast. It's not effective enough. Probably decent for keeping you safe at home, but not good enough for an organization or for a business. You need something that can inspect all the traffic. It can inspect encrypted traffic for malware, and it logs data in case there is a breach. So you can file police reports, you can file insurance reports, you can file breach reports. And they're not expensive. Decent commercial grade firewalls start at under $1,000. So it's time to make that move. Multi-factor authentication and I always say start with email because that's included. It's available with any 365 plan. It's available with any Google G Suite plan. So chances are your company's email platform already supports multi-factor authentication, and you should periodically be prompted to enter a code from your phone when you log in to your email. That is the single most effective thing that you can do for the lowest cost to protect your email accounts from being hacked. Absolutely critical. Cybersecurity staff training and testing. And this can be as easy as having a half-hour class as effective.
I'm sorry, Russell, I want to go back to one point you just made.
Absolutely.
It says email and key software. So a rising trend that Russell and I have seen just in the last 30 days. For those of you that are watching this and you currently have cybersecurity insurance, wonderful. We are so happy to hear that because it's not either or, it's and both. For those of you that don't have it, get it. But the rising trend that Russell and I are seeing from our customer base is they are reaching out to us saying, hey, my cybersecurity insurance company just asked me to fill out this audit. And one of the things that the audit is requiring is that I activate multi-factor authentication on all of my software, or they're going to deny any future claims. So if you have not gotten this letter yet, our experience is it's coming, and they're giving businesses about a 30-day window to do what they've been asked. Another sophistication, another layer that's coming into the process.
Because the insurance companies are responding to all the hacks that have happened this year too, and they're losing their shirts and they're wanting to protect their business, and so they're asking all of us to step up our games. Yeah, exactly, Mike. Cybersecurity staff training and testing. I always like to say it doesn't matter how high we build the castle walls if somebody lowers the drawbridge from the inside. And that's unfortunately how most hacks are happening right now, is that one of your staff or you, gets tricked into handing over credentials or handing over either credentials to an email, key piece of software, or handing over access to a computer or server because it wasn't actually your IT company or wasn't actually your bank that sent you that email. It was somebody phishing you. And that is hugely important. Most of the hacks that we have seen in the past year have been through people being tricked and being tricked into handing over information or access. So educating your staff on what to do protects your business. The staff, in our experience, people are very excited about this too, because they know it protects their home accounts. So we do live training sessions. We do monthly courses that come out. There's a 5-minute training video and questions. We want to reinforce on a regular basis how to be smart when you're online. The same way you teach people how to be smart when they're walking around any city. Windows Active Directory security policies. So again, if you already have a server, this is something that isn't going to cost you anything, but can be very important. You want to have policies for how many passwords or how many times somebody can log in to a computer with an incorrect password before their account is locked for a period of time. That can prevent a large number of attacks. You want to have policies to force the log out of a computer or force a lock screen to come up if a person hasn't been at their computer for several minutes. Mike was in a doctor's office a couple months ago, sitting in the exam room waiting 10 minutes to see his doctor with a computer logged into their patient portal.
Never went to sleep.
Yeah, never went to sleep. That's the kind of thing that you should have a timeout policy, and that helps protect your patient data.
Probably 5 minutes or less.
And Peggy, I do see you have a question. I'm going to get to it in 1 second here. That's a very good one. Drive encryption for computers and laptops. You may have seen this. Microsoft announced Windows 11 a few weeks back. It'll be coming in the fall. We'll be talking about that in one of these webinars. Don't worry. One of the things that Windows 11 requires is something called Trusted Platform Module. That's an encryption chip on the motherboard or on the processor that allows you to encrypt your hard drive. That means that if your computer is stolen, and we've had clients where a computer was in the bag in the back of their car when somebody broke a window and stole their bag, if it's encrypted, the person who stole that computer can't read your data. If your drive is unencrypted, which if you just picked it up from Best Buy, just brought it home, nobody set it up for you, typically it's probably not encrypted. Anybody who's an IT guy like myself, we can pull that drive out of your computer, plug it into another computer, and in 10 minutes be reading all your data. So this is something that drive encryption is built into Windows 10 Pro. It is built into the Mac operating system. Doesn't cost you anything to turn it on. Hugely important. So those
Russell,
are kind of our
right.
top five.
Peggy's question about PCI compliance.
Yes.
So I'll read it for the audience. Does
Please.
PCI compliance cost anything, or is it just filling out information? I have received the email, but was skeptical about it. So the short answer, Peggy, is you can fill out a PCI compliance document on your own. What most people find is they're not answering with yes to most of the questions, which means they're not compliant.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do PCI compliance without incurring a fee, but the likelihood is you will need somebody to help you with what's called remediation. So fixing the broken stuff. Mm-hmm. So what typically happens is you would hire a company like Advantage or another cybersecurity company that would do an audit for you. And they would run through the 110 plus control requirements that go into PCI, and they would compare that to what you have in place. And then based on that, they can tell you, you need 5 things, 20 things, 30 things, 110 things. Right. And then from there, you build a strategy for your remediation.
Now, PCI compliance is built on NIST 800-171, like most compliance frameworks used in the US are. It's one of the gentler ones. It's an easier one, but it is a nice standard. So often our recommendation to clients, if they want to be on a, get started with a cybersecurity standard, it's a very good one to start with. And it is going to include things like password policies and access policies. So it's going to cover a lot of the stuff we're seeing here in these 5 easy steps. May ask you to do a little other, but there are a lot of paths to it. And most of the fixes aren't going to cost you much, or maybe not anything. There may be a few things, but there are a lot of clever ways we can get to PCI compliance. We even have large companies. We have a car dealer
Affordable
group.
and efficient ways.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a car dealer group. They've got 150 employees. Rather than make the whole organization PCI compliant, we said, okay, you're only taking credit cards on these 5 systems. So we're going to build a separate network just for these 5 systems. And we only need to keep this one portion of your network PCI compliant. We don't need to keep the whole thing. So there are a lot of paths and avenues to getting there. And we or another IT or security company can definitely help you with that. Yeah, good question. One of the things I'm going to sort of introduce today is talking. I like to talk about these IT concepts and security concepts using metaphors and stories. And one of the ones that I've run into this year that I like a lot, this is from a partner of ours that we work with in Delaware, likes to talk about think about your office network like a home. And the different computers are the people in the home. Your employees are the people in the home. And in a home, you're going to do things to secure your house while people are there and while people are out of the house. So you're going to put in protections. You're going to put doors. You're going to put doors on your house, right? But you're also going to lock those doors. You're going to put locks. You're going to put locks on your windows. Maybe you have some lights outside. Maybe you have some motion sensors outside. And then if you're going the extra step, you're also going to add in things like maybe you have security cameras, maybe you have motion sensors, scattered around your house. And so there's perimeter security, which is those things designed to keep people out. So those are the locks. That might be the alarm on the window. These are all things designed to keep people from breaking in or let you know that that's happening. But what about the window on the second floor or the one in the basement that, there's no lock and somebody climbed up there and got in while you were on vacation? So if all you've done is perimeter security, they managed to get in through an area you didn't know about or hadn't thought about, and now they're in your house. If you're on vacation, if you're away, how do you detect that they're there?
Yeah.
You're probably not going to. You're probably going to come back and find that somebody was there and cleaned everything out.
Russell, I love this analogy. And you and I have talked about there's a really good car analogy too. If you think about it, you wouldn't drive your car to any city, park it downtown, leave the keys in the ignition, roll down the windows, leave the car doors unlocked, leave the car door open, and expect to come back an hour later and your car still be there. Nobody would do that. But if you continue that metaphor, Russell and I meet with businesses every week that have done just that. Short of putting a free to good home sign on their car, they're not taking any proactive measures.
Right.
And so, like I just said, you don't leave your keys in your car. That's smart. You leave your windows rolled up. That's smart. You lock the doors. That's smart. The passive alarm system that's built into your car takes over. Those are all smart things. Most people aren't doing that for their business.
What people are doing, and if we look back at our 5 easy steps, these fall into that, is people are doing what we call perimeter security. And that is, again, it's like the locks. It's designed to keep people out of the network. And that historically is what we've been able to do in IT and where the focus has been for the past couple decades. So what does perimeter security look like? Well, it's a firewall, which is monitoring all the traffic in and out of your network and preventing brute force attacks where people are probing open internet connections and trying to hack their way in. So firewalls are going to prevent that. Your antivirus installed on your computers and servers, same deal. That is going to, any files coming in, anything somebody's trying to run, it's going to analyze that file. If it meets a set of known definitions as malware, it's going to isolate it and stop it from getting any further. Even multi-factor authentication is perimeter security. It's designed to keep third parties from logging into that email account, right? So that's, and perimeter security is wonderful. It's been tremendously successful.
Yeah.
Think about how much spam your business has versus how much spam it had 5 years ago. You probably have less, or less is getting through. More is being sent out. But if you have a good spam filter from, Mimecast or Barracuda, Spam Titan, you're not getting a lot of spam these days. You're not getting those random emails too much anymore because the good spam companies have become very adept at catching those things. Antivirus is the same way. You used to like any attachment, you got to watch out for it. Well, Microsoft, Google, they do a very good job scanning attachments for viruses these days. Your spam filter does a very good job doing that. Barracuda will scan all files and then they'll run it in a sandbox environment if they can't recognize the file, just to make sure it's legit before they pass it along. So these things are good. They work well. You have to have them. Otherwise, you're parking that car with the key in the ignition downtown, like Mike said. Yeah. So you have to have these things, and they're very important because they lead out the noise. They prevent you from being hacked all the time. You're no longer an opportunistic target, which is also very important. It's a strong deterrent, but it's not 100% effective. And there are two areas where perimeter security breaks down. One of them gets mentioned in the news a lot, happened with Kaseya last week, happened with Microsoft Exchange earlier this year, happened with a Microsoft printing issue 3 weeks ago. What's called a zero-day attack or a zero-day exploit. What is that? And I get asked that a lot. What is a zero-day attack? And that kind of the term itself comes from this idea that when a hacker has found a vulnerability in a piece of software or a piece of hardware. So, I'm a bad guy and, I'm a clever bad guy and I'm working away and I discover, hey, there's this loophole in how Microsoft installs printers. And if I do these things exactly right in this exact right order, I can pretend to install a printer and get administrative access to the computer, and then be able to give myself that administrator level account and be able to do whatever I want. And this is exactly what happened 3 weeks ago. Microsoft was unaware of this issue. They did not know this was a problem until the bad guy deployed it in the world. And the day when computers, for whatever reason, and I'd have to go back and ask Gordon Moore or somebody back in the 50s, computer people always start with 0 as the first number. They don't start with 1. So even hard drives, it's hard drive 0, hard drive 1. And if you open up your computer guys say, okay, well, that first day that the bad guy uses this new unknown vulnerability, that's day 0. And that's when the clock starts. So when that happens, again, keep in mind, Microsoft was not aware of this printer problem 3 weeks ago. And so the bad guy starts using it. Well, think about what needs to happen at that point. First off, people need to be aware they're being attacked, right? And that takes time for people to realize that. We're going to see how much time that can take them on the next slide.
And how little time it takes.
Right. The bad guys to act.
Yeah.
They're also, what's going to happen is, okay, now we've learned that, hey, we're being attacked, but we don't know how we're being attacked yet. We don't know what the exact exploit is. So it's going to take time to figure out, okay, well, that's a Microsoft issue. Now Microsoft is going to be looking at it. They have the best security people in the world, probably. It's still going to take them time to figure out, okay, what is the attack? How is the bad guy doing this? What are the steps they're using? Okay, so that's going to take some time, right? And then now they have to figure out, how do we prevent this attack from happening while still allowing people to use their computers? How do we prevent this while still allowing them to print? And that took several days, a couple weeks ago. So there's this period where there is a new attack, has to be discovered, has to be identified, have to develop the fix, have to release that fix and get everybody install it. And that's why everybody's computer at home has been asking you to reboot to install Windows updates in the past week because of that issue. So
Russell, we just got a great question in the chat that is very relevant to what you're discussing right here. So I'm going to read it and share it and let you incorporate it. So our good friend Sue Rannick said, what is a sandbox environment?
That's another good IT term to ask about. So this is a newer thing, and I'm really excited that companies have started to do this. A lot of our partners in the security field do this. So we use Barracuda's anti-spam services, for instance, and that's a good example. Let's say I'm sending Mike a attachment. It could be a copy of this PowerPoint presentation. When I send that through Barracuda, it's going to look at this attachment and it's going to check it against a list of known viruses. And it'll say, okay, no, you're clean. It's also going to check it against a list of known file types. So it's going to say, oh, this is a PowerPoint presentation. That's okay. Let's say I send a file to Mike where Barracuda can't identify it. It can't identify it as a PowerPoint presentation. Maybe I send a zip file with a bunch of things inside it. And it can't identify it as a virus. It can't say if it's good or bad. It doesn't know. What Barracuda does is it will put the file in a sandbox environment. So they have a virtual computer out in their cloud, and it'll basically take this attachment that I send Mike, and it's going to say, hey, we're going to run it in our virtual computer and see what it does. And if it's just a PowerPoint, Barracuda is going to say, okay, we opened it, we ran the file. It was just a PowerPoint, didn't do anything bad. Great, we're going to pass it on to Mike. So it's going to reach him now. And it may have taken an extra minute or two to do this. So sometimes it can be a little delay. Let's say they open that file and run it and, ooh, it is doing something bad. Maybe it's running a network discovery tool and trying to map out all the computers in Mike's house or office. Maybe it is a virus that was a brand new one, hasn't been identified yet, but we could tell that, hey, it's doing some bad things here. It's doing it's doing things that a PowerPoint shouldn't do. And at that point, Barracuda would stop the email and it would never reach Mike.
And all that happens in a matter of a minute or two.
Yeah, in a minute or two. Now they call it a sandbox because it ran it on this virtual computer in Barracuda's cloud, which is now infected with a virus. But these computers are set up to work like a sandbox. So you built your little virtual computer, you built your sandcastle, and something messed it up. So you just let a wave wash over, wipe out your sandcastle, and you've got a brand new environment. So when they need to test the next file a minute later, they'll build a new little environment to test it on. And if it's good, great. And if they need to destroy it, they just wipe it out like a sandcastle, and they can move on. So
yeah, great question.
We do like sandbox environments, so because it is starting to move on to this sort of next generation security capability where we can't identify it. It's not on a known list, but let's see what it does. And so very interesting stuff. The problem with zero-day vulnerabilities, again, there are no products to detect the attack, so it's not in any antivirus definition. There are no protections. How can you protect against something if you don't know what it is? There are no remediations, so there are no fixes for it. And again, it can take days or weeks to identify. Now, for our clients, we actually, because it was taking Microsoft several days to fix this printer problem, we actually broke printers for most of our clients. So we didn't break printing, but we broke the ability to add new printers because that was the fix at the moment. Until Microsoft could develop a fix and release it, which they did a few days ago, we said, okay, we're going to stop clients from being able to add new printers. You can still use your existing ones. If you need to add a new printer, call us, we'll do it manually. But in order to protect you, we're going to break this add printer process until they were able to develop a fix.
And you know, Russell, that's a great point. A lot of the ways that IT partners should work with a company is just that, and say there isn't a known solution to this yet, but there is a very good way for us to allow you as a customer to continue working,
right,
and keep you safe. And that's the goal here,
right?
Because we know that cybersecurity can be inconvenient. You know, having to multi-factor authenticate every time. So we've tried to strike that balance, and that's what you should be asking your IT partner is, you know, how do I strike a balance between this?
And now that Microsoft has a fix, we're able to go back and roll back that change for our clients so they can add printers on their own again without needing to call us. So, you know, in this case, we can restore that convenience, but our security is our paramount concern.
Yep.
The other vulnerability we already talked about, and that's people lowering the drawbridge from the inside. And that's another way that people get around perimeter security. Again, if somebody opens the door from within, that bypasses your perimeter security. And that's a really big problem. And so again, if somebody grants permission for something to run or bypasses or allows it to run despite a warning from their antivirus or firewall, guess what? Now that bad guy's in the network. And here we are, users. So, right, and users often do have, you know, you can get a spam email depending on who your anti-spam provider is. You can still deliver that spam message. Maybe that's good, maybe it's not. You know, you can be tricked into handing over credentials, and we see that all the time. One of the other big problems is people tend to do things like reuse passwords in multiple places. So, you know, maybe they are very good.
Or they saved them in Google Chrome, or they saved them in Firefox.
Yep. Yeah. So maybe they are very good about their security, but hey, they've been using their password, you know, their company password also for LinkedIn, which was hacked several years ago. And guess what? The bad guys are going to try those passwords because they know people reuse them.
And you could take that a step further, Russell, because not only will they try it there, but they're going to say, oh, I have Mike Shela's LinkedIn email and password. I wonder if he uses that for his bank.
Right.
I wonder if he uses that for his credit card. I wonder if he uses that to log into the payroll portal at his company where he checks on his pay stub. So they're going to try it 100 different places. Again, they don't know anything about you other than a username and password, but a lot of times that's all they need.
And again, this isn't a lot of time for them because they're using computer programs to do this. So they're just basically uploading spreadsheets and telling the computer to go to work and send them a report of what they were able to get into.
Yeah, so they'll have 100 different banks on there. Let's say try this on these 100 banks. Oh, what do you know? Mike has a banking account with Santander. Oh, let's see what we can find out.
Yep.
And we were able to log in.
We have definitely seen this. Number 3 here, users with local admin rights can inadvertently install malicious software. I've seen this several times over the years, and often it's somebody's like, oh yeah, I need I need to be able to edit PDFs, and so they'll just go on, Google, and they'll grab the first result, or they may say, oh, I'm just going to grab this one, and it's not a trusted vendor, it's not a known vendor, and it's maybe that company is sending data back to a third party. You don't know who that data is being sent to. So it can be, just a easy mistake, an understandable mistake. Somebody's not trying to do anything bad. They're just trying to do their job. and maybe they've gone and installed software they shouldn't have. You also have bad employees, and we've seen that before, who are working to do things to sabotage systems or steal information, steal sales and lead lists. We've seen these things before too.
But there is hope. We want to give you
There
hope.
is. One last slide before we get to the hope. This is the interesting thing to me, this number here, 193 days, the mean time to identify a data breach. And that's a average from 2020 in the US. So what does that mean? That means the average company, it takes them over half a year before they realize that somebody has gotten into their systems and may still be there. We had a recent example of this. They're now a client, but they weren't at this time when this all went down. Back in January, one of their email accounts was hacked. And in April, the hacker acted upon the information that they collected over the previous several months. They had spent that time between January and April learning, what do wire transfer forms look like at this company? Who do they go to? Who should be CC'd on it? What's the correct language to use? How should I even write this email? How should I sign it? So they'd spent several months learning how this company handled wire transfers. And so when they acted in April, they did everything by procedure, the way it should be done for this organization. And they managed to trick them into wire transferring $90,000 overseas. That's obviously cost the company $90,000. They're getting a portion of that back from their insurance. They also had to do another $20,000 in investigation and breach report and filings with auditors. So this was a huge disaster, but that bad guy was sitting for months active in their network, learning everything they could about this company.
And
they had no way of seeing it because these guys do things to cover their tracks while they're doing this. Yes, Mike.
One of the reasons that is an average of 193 days, because your example certainly happens every day. A lot of the times, the way that a company identifies a breach is, unfortunately, they receive a letter from an attorney that says, my client was the victim of identity theft, and we have determined that it was a result of something that happened within your network because they are a current or former customer of yours. So now that person is seeking restitution for what has happened. So that 193 days, that's how many of those people find out, because they don't have the infrastructure in place to support them. But there is hope. We have hope.
So, right, what do we do? This is a really bad problem, and we've all seen that this year. So there is hope, like I said. So we want to move beyond perimeter security, because it's not perfect. Nothing is. And it's not good at seeing when people are inside. It's good at keeping them out. It's great at keeping them out. But if they bypass it, how do we see them inside? So let's go back to the house metaphor. And we can see on here, we got firewall, antivirus, great. So let's add some motion detectors. Let's add some cameras to the house. Let's add an alarm system and an alarm service that's tied to real people on the other side. So when that alarm goes off, when the motion detector sends an alarm at 3 a.m. while you're on vacation 1,000 miles away, somebody's going to see that alert. They're going to turn on the cameras. They're going to see the bad actor. They're going to call the police. They're going to take action. So that's what we're really trying to move to now. And our big thing there, our favorite thing right now, is managed detection and response. We're going to get into that here in a minute. But that is designed to look for unusual activity, unusual patterns, unusual movements of data in your network, odd logins, and flag those things and say, we don't know what the nice thing with this kind of system is. You don't need to know what type of attack it is. You don't need to know that this is a Microsoft attack exploiting printer installations, because it's not looking for a specific attack. It's looking for flows of data and patterns and signs of somebody else in your network. It doesn't care how they got in there, but it's going to flag whatever it is. So that's one of the things we love. It doesn't care what the source is. It doesn't need to be defined. It's just going to look for the activity. It's going to look for the evidence.
Russell, you told me a great story about MDR last week.
I did. This was fantastic. We have some clients that are defense contractors. This is actually now a requirement to have this type of MDR platform if you are a defense contractor in the U.S., which I think is a great thing. So I was sitting working Friday afternoon, get a phone call, and it is our security operations center in Baltimore, and they're saying, hey, we got an alert for this defense contractor that somebody just logged into an email account from Nigeria. We're assuming this is not known, and we want to check in with you. So I got the client on the phone, and he said, yeah, absolutely, David is not in Nigeria. Let's shut it down. And I asked our security operations guy, John, who was on duty at that moment, I said, John, how long ago did this login happen? He goes, oh, just under 2 minutes. So think about that. Think about the one client who they had an email account hacked in January, and in April was when they moved and tricked them into handing over $100,000, versus this case Friday, which was in 2 minutes, we'd known the account was compromised, and we were able to cut off access, reset passwords, clean everything out in less than 10 minutes. So the bad guy never had a chance to act. And again, in most cases, like I said, they probably never even logged into this account themselves. It was probably a computer program testing it out, and they would have gotten their report at the end of the day saying you can log into this account. So they didn't have time to put any rules. They didn't have any time to look at any data. We were able to act immediately. That's where we want to be. And so it's really fantastic that these tools are being developed and coming along. And so we attach, the other thing is we want to be able to log these things. Oh, go back one. We want to be able to detect these things. We also want to be able to log them. That's especially important if you are working in an industry or an organization that has a lot of reporting responsibilities and expectations. So legal organizations, medical, HIPAA, government contractors, if there is a breach, you need to be able to file reports, and you want to have very good logging of how far they got in, because that saves you a lot of money. If you have logged to show that, hey, they were on for 5 minutes and reached no other systems, and this is the only area we need to look at or file a report about, that's great. If you don't have logs, guess what? The Department of Defense or whoever your auditor is said, well, now you need to look at the whole company. And that's going to cost about $30,000 to do that kind of full-scale audit. You don't want to have to do that. You want to be able to say, hey, we've got logs, and here is the very narrow window of the breach, and that's all we need to clean up. People. Even though we're in IT and we love our computers, you got to have people looking at these things. And so we work our SOC, Security Operations Center. It's 24/7, 365. Most hacks, most breaches tend to happen at night because people aren't there to see, paying attention. So we want to be able to act at 2 or 3 in the morning.
And with that, Russell, most of these attacks are not occurring in the United States, because if the hacker is in the United States and they do get caught, then they go to jail. Right. It's much harder for the United States government to track down a hacker anywhere outside the United States and then extradite that person back to America. So that's part of the reason that so much of this happens around the globe as opposed to in the United States.
Yeah. This is this is actually a screenshot. We work with a couple different managed detection response partners, and there's several good ones. This
We
is
really
a
like this
screenshot.
one. They're very
Yeah.
nice. They're awesome.
Yeah. This is Blackpoint. They all look very similar to this. So they'll do basically a map of your network, and this is real-time data. So they'll have agents on your computers, Windows and Mac. Doesn't matter where you are, it's all internet based. So they don't need to be in the office, because guess what? Everybody's hybrid working right now. So we want to protect your folks at home on their computers as well, because we're all connected to the cloud. That computer at their house is just as dangerous as the one in the office, if not more so, because you don't know, their kids could be on that computer, all kinds of things. So we want to really keep our eye on those home users as well. So we like these types of systems, but they have real-time monitoring, real-time logging on the computers and on the email accounts, like I just talked about. So if that computer is infected, if that computer starts doing suspicious things like running a network discovery tool, running a network mapper, or trying different ports on the network on other devices to see if there are any unsecured ports, that's the kind of thing that is going to trigger an alert on an MDR platform to say, hey, average Joe or average Joe's Tech 4 computer, that's doing something bad. And that's going to generate an alert. They're going to call us, they're going to open a ticket. And we actually have the capability, and most of these platforms do, to say, hey, we're just going to shut down Joe's computer right now.
Because it doesn't even have to be identified as bad.
Right.
Actually, the more accurate word is it's unusual.
Right.
Why is Joe logged on at 2 a.m.
Right.
from a server out in California?
Right.
So it looks for those things. And I think, Russell, that here's where the hope comes in, folks.
Mm-hmm.
You probably look at this and go, that looks expensive.
Right.
And if you had asked us, say 5 years ago, we would have said, yeah, it is. Well, when we would price this out for our defense clients, the price was starting at $100,000 a year and would go up from there. But what Russell just showed you, the managed detection and response, we can apply that as a license for our clients for a few dollars per person per month. So it's very economical. When you think about what it does and how well it protects you.
Yeah, one of the things I love about technology is that over time it becomes more affordable and it democratizes. So, and we see this all the time in our industry. So, right, 2 years ago, this kind of capability existed, but it was only affordable by large organizations, and it was very much targeted at Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 1000 companies. One of our partners, who again has a great product, starts at 500 seats, 500 employees, and that is where their pricing starts. So they're happy to sell it to you as a 50-person defense contractor, but guess what? You're paying the full price for 500 seats. And what has happened in the last year is that, there's some new players coming on. The technology has gotten more flexible and affordable. And so now there are people that are able to do it on a per seat basis very affordably. So they don't care if you're a law firm of, 10 employees. Guess what? You can get this now. And it's a small monthly cost.
Russell, they don't have to work with us to do
No.
this, right? I mean, we want you to, don't get me wrong, we want you to, but you can go out and buy this product and implement it for your company.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic way to protect your business without making a tremendous capital investment.
Yeah. Yeah. And it, like I said, it really covers the things that you can't anticipate. And that is really the transformation in security in the last couple of years, is that let's cover the things that we didn't plan for. Let's cover the things that we didn't anticipate, and let's find those and detect those and shut them down. So yeah, I think let's open it up for questions. I've talked a heck of a lot here. But I think the main thing I really want people to take away from is, like I said here, you have to assume that it's a matter of when, not if.
And how bad. Yeah.
But don't freak out.
There's hope.
there's hope. It's affordable. It's flexible. There are a lot of people who can help you with it too. There are a lot of very good organizations, a lot of very good products that have come into the market just in the past year that really improve our capabilities. And like I said, it's been amazing for me seeing it in action recently, like the example on Friday. We had another one about a month ago where ran a malicious file purposely and got the call within 10 minutes. And I love to see that.
So we just got an awesome question from Phil.
Mhm.
Thank you, Phil. And it says,
Mhm.
so in addition to your expertise, thank you, is the value of what you offer the SOC team for 24/7? So the short answer is that's absolutely part of what we bring to the table for our clients is having that 24/7 coverage. But Russell, I'll let you elaborate on a little bit of that because there's so much more.
Well, I absolutely, and that's critical. Older products, there have been some tools that did a lot of this stuff, and it's what's called a SIM or SIEM. I've seen people pronounce it both ways, which is the system information event monitoring. And that would do logging and generate nice reports, and you'd look at it the next day. And so the problem there was it might be 24 hours or more. Maybe it was a weekend, so you wouldn't look at it until Monday. It might be 24, 72 hours before anybody realized, whoops, we had a problem here. Somebody got into a system, but that was last night. How much damage have they done since then? So having that SOC is hugely valuable and being able to step on it immediately. The shorter the amount of time a hacker is in your environment, the less damage they can do and the less it is going to cost your organization to clean that up. So
And
that's
even as
valuable.
Russell said earlier, we don't necessarily have to act on it at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
We just have to stop it.
Right.
And then we can call in the morning and say, Allie, by the way, at 2 a.m. this morning, we detected this was going on with your computer and we don't think it's good. So we wanted to go review this with you and make sure. Now, if it actually had been Allie, he would have called us and said, hey, why is my machine not working?
Yeah.
Because he's actually up at 2 o'clock in the morning doing the work. But because 99.9% of the time it's somebody trying to do a bad thing, Allie gets a good night's sleep. We've stopped the threat. And in the morning, we discuss it to make sure that it doesn't happen again for him, to protect him.
And I think having a staffed one is very important too. There are some services that are purely automated. We felt when we were doing our evaluation earlier this year of several different vendors, we felt that having actual people there was critical because of things like false positives. We don't want to act, we want that human perspective to sit there and say, this is serious or this isn't that serious. We think this is a false alarm here and help make that call. So that was very important to us too, having a staff SOC. Good question.
Guys, I wrote down 4 questions and we
All right.
Only 4?
Yeah. So a lot of our businesses are small business that are members of the chamber, some quite large actually. And
Sure.
if they're on the larger side, how do they know if their IT department is staffed appropriately? And if not, because I mentioned we have a lot of smaller businesses, and you've already said that this definitely is your market niche to provide these services to those individual small businesses. But so that's great, and we hope that our members will take advantage of that offering. But on the larger case, when they do have an IT department, how does that company know if they are adequately and appropriately staffed?
So the short version is they don't, and they're probably not. And here's what I mean by that. So Russell and I spoke to a prospective client a couple of weeks ago that had reached out to us through our website and said, hey, we'd like a penetration test. And we thought, well, that's a very unique and specific request. So we met with their CFO and we met with a young man who had actually sent the request. Turns out that he is a recent graduate from UMBC and he has a degree in cybersecurity. And we were talking with the two of them and we said, well, why do you want a penetration test? And they said, well, we're a government contractor, so we have to follow these new CMMC guidelines, and we want a penetration test. And so Russell and I said, well, actually, the terms and conditions of a cyber maturity model certification, CMMC for short, do not require a penetration test. Now, you can get a lot of great results from that, but that's not what you need. What you need is a full CMMC audit. And they said, oh, well, Rick, and I'm changing his name to protect the innocent. Rick is for doing the audit for us. He just graduated from UMBC with a degree in cybersecurity. And I am sure Rick is a very smart, very intelligent young man. I too am a graduate of UMBC, so I love them. But Rick can't possibly know all of the 130 control requirements that go into that. That's too much for one person to stay on top of. And so that's why we work with larger organizations. We call it co-managed, Allie, where they have a team and we serve as an extension of the team. And we're economical. To hire us costs less than hiring 2 or 3 people to get that job done. So that's where we have a lot of our conversations around. Let us fill in the gaps for you. Because that's what we're doing. We're enhancing, we're filling in the gaps.
It is interesting. There's very much my degree's in anthropology, but there's very much a cultural kind of separation. There are kind of network and infrastructure folks and traditional IT folks and there are security folks, and they are different animals and do have different skill sets. There's a lot of overlap there, but it's not a perfect overlap. And so we often find that, many IT departments, and like Mike said, we do work with companies with several hundred employees would have an IT department, and we will supplement on the security levels because like for defense contractors, we have staff that have gotten their government certification to provide cybersecurity for defense contractors. We've been able to have people specialize in that because it is a specialization.
Got it. Okay. Obviously, we work with you guys, love the partnership. We're a client of yours. But if we weren't, and there was, how would I be able to detect an attempted or successful cybersecurity incident or breach if I did not? I'm sleeping. I mean, I sometimes do emails at 2 a.m, but if I was sound asleep and something happened, how would I be able to detect that? I know that was the 139 days and so forth,
without the tools, you don't
at all.
Typically it is when the bad guy acts is when you find out about
when the lawyer calls.
Right.
Or the ransomware locks in.
Right.
Russell gave a great example the other day. The way that ransomware works is it starts encrypting all of your files.
Yeah.
So our system looks for that mass encryption. So let's say we start to, hey, they don't normally encrypt their files. All of a sudden, there's been a request put out to encrypt files. So we can catch it so that it's only at 1% or 2% of the encryption process. So we've protected 98%. And we've also put in a protocol with our dual redundant backup solution for our clients so that we can recover the 1 or 2% that were impacted.
A good example too is in a compromised email account, hackers follow procedures and processes like all of us do.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this one.
So one of the first things a hacker does on a compromised email account is they set up all these mail flow rules. So they'll set up forwarding messages to an external account, but you have to go into webmail, like you have to drill down to find those rules. You're not seeing that in Outlook on a daily basis. They're going to set up things like if I send an email with this subject, automatically delete the email and then remove it from the recycle bin.
Oh,
so you can't even go back and look at your sent folder to say, what is that? I didn't send that. No, they've already taken care of immediately cleaning up their tracks.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, there really isn't a good way unless you're doing some kind of 24/7 monitoring.
Yeah. Which is why this MDR tool, it's a
game changer. Not to overuse that expression, which is, but it is a game changer for us.
No, that's great. Yeah. Do we know how to respond in an emergency? Is you've answered that, but is there a different kind of, Mike?
Ali, that is a fantastic question. One of the big things that Russell and I see in almost every new client opportunity is a complete or incomplete lack of effective documentation. So if a client comes to us and says, well, I'd like PCI. So we will provide a template. We have a standardized template that addresses all the control requirements that come with PCI. And with our clients, we'll do one of two things. We'll say, okay, you can edit these templates yourself so that you now have your book, or on a time and material basis, we will do these editing and revisions with you so that this is now customized not only to PCI, which is the requirement you're seeking, but to your business.
Mhm.
And then Russell uses that as part of his training as well when he's working with the staff.
Yep. Yep. That's great. And then my final question was about data lifecycle management. And do we know where our data is and how it's protected? I think I know how it's protected, but yeah, it's on some data farm.
And I'll let Russell address that a little bit better. But again, we're putting tools in place to
and you
don't want us to know where it is, obviously.
You'll actually see this in a lot of these insurance forms that you're being asked to fill out, and the companies are being asked to fill out, is they want you to talk about where your data is stored and how it's protected. They want to know whose cloud you're using, or if it's an on-premises server, and they want to have that documented because they'll flag things like, hey, you're using a personal Dropbox account which doesn't have any user management. They don't want that, and they'll flag that and that kind of thing. But if they'll say, oh, you're in G Suite or you're in 365 and you've got version control and user management and multi-factor authentication, we're okay with that. And a good IT partner should be able to help you kind of qualify who are the appropriate vendors to use for these kinds of things. And I brought up the Dropbox account because Dropbox is fine, but I do see with things like that a lot of people go for the home account because it's cheaper, rather than the business one. And the reason the business one is more expensive is it does have a lot of these security tools and you track users and versions and MFA.
Okay. And a big part of what we help with, Ali, is navigating the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, you as a business leader could get a requirement report from your insurance company and says, well, where is your data? And you respond, okay, well, it's in the Microsoft Azure cloud. Okay, great. We need to see proof that they are Sarbanes-Oxley compliant.
Yeah.
So they'll ask for secondary and even sometimes even a third layer of, okay, great. Now that we know that about you, you need to provide this documentation. So as your
medical
partner,
is a good example of that. That you should be able to get that business associate agreement letter from whoever your provider is in terms of the compliance.
Got it. So your clients also have outside cyber security insurance, correct? Or is that something
they should?
We're recommending that.
Yeah. Okay.
They absolutely should.
We're recommending that. Yeah, and that should both protect you from liability, people suing you over a data breach, as well as provide some remediation. If you have to, this would be a bad example, and this is again somebody who maybe there wasn't good logging. We didn't know exactly where the bad guy looked. If you have to look at your entire network, that's tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And so you'd want to have something to cover.
And so with that, Russell and I met with the logistics company in Curtis Bay, and we were in the office. We met with the CIO and his team, and I think he had 5 people on his team. And I brought up cybersecurity insurance, and they said, "Oh, we just renewed that." I said, "Great. Which one of you looked at it?" And they said, "What?" I said, "Which one of you looked at the policy?" And he goes, "None of us."
I think we've got a question from Phil.
Yeah, Phil, I put him into our group. So Phil, if you go off mute, you can ask your question live. I might have to take you off mute. Hang on.
And folks, I do need to head off in a minute, but I guess we're on break. Oh, there's Phil.
Phil, go ahead. Okay, I don't know if he's able to
Want to
speak.
try typing it
feel free
out?
to reach out to us independently.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to address your question.
I guess we're on break next month because it is Washington in August. But
Yeah.
we'll be back in September, right?
And we're doing Microsoft Excel.
We're
Part
doing
2,
Excel,
so
another Excel
we're
class.
kicking it up a notch and bringing you advanced
Definitely
methodologies
tune
and
in. Yeah, and we'll
strategies
be
for Excel.
we'll be promoting that. That'll be a great opportunity to learn a lot more about the Excel and the functionalities. So
Also be the following month in October, we'll be doing a little bit of a shopping guide for the holidays in terms
Perfect.
of computers and stuff and what to look for, because we know that's coming up. So there'll be some good ones coming up.
Thank you, Allie.
Terrific.
Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody that participated today. My engineer extraordinaire, Russell, thank you so much for your wisdom.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you both. And on behalf of the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce, we thank you for joining us for our webinar series with our partners, Advantage Industries, and we will see you in September. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.